the silent erasure of the number 13. You've all experienced this scene. You walk into a hotel. In New York, London, Tokyo, it doesn't matter. You step into the elevator, your eyes land on the panel, 11, 12, 14, no gap, no explanation. As if 13 never existed. But the floor is there. The concrete was poured, the pipes were laid, people are sleeping in those rooms. Only the number is gone. Only that name was erased. We've grown so accustomed to this that most of us have stopped asking. Maybe a child standing next to you in an elevator once asked, "Why does it go from 12 to 14?" And you, with a slight smile, a little embarrassed, said, 13 is unlucky. But why unlucky? That's the real question. And the moment I took that question seriously, what appeared before me wasn't just a superstition. It was the shadow of something much larger and much older. What existed before the erasure. 13 is not an arbitrary number. Think about the movement of the moon. In a single solar year, the moon completes approximately 13 full cycles. Not 12, not 14, 13. This is an astronomical fact, independent of culture, language, or belief. And yet the calendar we use today is built on 12 months. 30 days, 31 days, and then February, the wounded finger of the year. This irregularity is the inevitable consequence of trying to force a 13-month reality into 12. The Maya did this calculation far more accurately. Their sacred 260-day calendar, the Tzolkin, was based on the product of 13 moving through 20 glyphs. This was not a symbolic choice. It predicted Venus cycles, solar zenith passages, and eclipse seasons with extraordinary precision. A civilization of that mathematical sophistication doesn't choose 13 as a base unit by accident. 13 was chosen because it worked. The Aztecs, the Egyptians, the Celts, the Norse, the indigenous peoples of North America and beyond, with no direct contact between them, separated by thousands of kilometers, 13 moons, 13 cycles, 13 nodes. The 13 plates on a turtle's back were used in many Native American traditions to count the lunar year. The pattern repeats with unsettling precision. How do you erase a number? I'm not talking about a single building. Thousands of hotels, tens of thousands of office towers and hospitals, from different countries, different languages, different cultures, all skipping the same number simultaneously. And there is no law ordering this. No international architectural standard, no signed document, no record of any kind. We're told this happened spontaneously. Do you believe that? Every architect, every hotel manager, independently and on their own, out of respect for public superstition, made this decision. Has any superstition in history ever produced this level of standardized, coordinated, and sustained behavioral change without some organizing force behind it? Look at airlines. Many skip row 13 entirely. The official reason is passenger comfort. But this logic collapses when you consider that these same companies squeeze passengers into middle seats, reduce legroom, charge for water. They're not optimizing for comfort. They're doing something else. Formula One went years without a car bearing the number 13. In NASCAR, 13 quietly disappeared from the roster during certain periods, not retired in honor of a great driver, not reserved for a sponsor. Simply absent, as if the number itself had been walked out the back door while everyone was looking the other way. This accumulation is the point at which superstition stops being an explanation and starts being a symptom. The historical erasure. Ancient Egypt recognized 13 stages in the soul's journey towards spiritual ascension. Sumerian tablets, remnants of one of the oldest known literate civilizations, treated 13 as a cosmic pivot point where cycles completed and renewed. These tablets were written before the Old Testament, before ancient Greece. And yet, the numerical framework they contain has been studied by almost no one outside narrow academic circles. Why? When we study the ancient Greek pantheon, we're taught there were 12 Olympians. But in several pre-classical sources, there are references to a 13th figure, present at councils, present at foundational mythological events, who was later merged with another deity or simply renamed. Academic consensus calls this mythological evolution. But there's another possibility. At some point, someone decided 12 was a cleaner number and removed the 13th. Not added, not developed, overlooked, and removed. The calendar question. The Gregorian calendar is not natural. I say this clearly and deliberately. This 12-month system, the one that governs the work schedules, tax deadlines, and official holidays of nearly every nation on Earth, was built on top of a 13-month astronomical reality. The moon completes one full cycle, from full moon to full moon, in approximately 29.5 days. Multiply that by 13, and you get 383.5 days. The solar year is 365.25 days. The math doesn't divide cleanly either way. But the 13-month calendar requires fewer corrections, fewer patches, fewer adjustments than the 12-month system. And yet the 12-month system won globally, without any serious competition, for centuries. Who benefits from a timekeeping system that requires more maintenance, more correction, more centralized management? The Ethiopian calendar still operates on 13 months today, 12 months of 30 days each, and a 13th short month of 5 or 6 days. Ethiopia is one of the very few nations that never fully adopted the Gregorian system. It is also one of the very few nations that successfully resisted colonial conquest. I'm not claiming causation, but I think the question is worth asking. The Druidic calendar consisted of 13 months, each dedicated to a tree. The Coligny calendar, discovered in France in 1897, and one of the longest surviving documents in a Celtic language, shows a sophisticated lunar solar timekeeping system with 13 as its fundamental unit. By every archaeological assessment, it was a high-precision calendar. The Roman Empire encountered it, and within generations of Roman consolidation in Gaul, the Druidic calendar was gone. Not adapted, not absorbed. Destroyed. And when you replace a calendar built around 13, when you tell people the old system was primitive, pagan, superstitious, something interesting happens. 13 becomes alien. It becomes the number that doesn't appear on the standard clock, the standard calendar, the standard building directory. And the human mind, exquisitely sensitive to pattern disruption, begins to register 13 as an anomaly, not because there is anything inherently dangerous about it, but because it was made to stand outside the system. The fear of 13 is not a fear of the number itself. It is the psychological residue of a deliberate, systematic exclusion, an engineered absence, an engineered void. The number itself, 12, is a bureaucrat's dream. It divides by 2, 3, 4, and 6. 12 inches in a foot, 12 months in a year, 12 hours on a clock face, 12 items in a dozen, 12 members on a jury. The architecture of modern institutional life is built in 12s. 13 is a prime number. It divides only by itself and by 1, nothing else. And here is the strange part. That indivisibility, that resistance to clean fragmentation, may be precisely what made it sacred to older cultures. A number that cannot be broken down. A number that cannot be controlled. Perhaps a number that resists the very systems designed to divide and govern people. Perhaps a number of resistance. I'm speculating, I acknowledge that. But the pattern of what was erased and what was promoted points not to random cultural drift, but to a deliberate preference for systems that enable management, measurement, and standardization over systems that preserve older, more organic cycles. The traces remain. They always do. Look at the Great Seal printed on every US dollar bill. 13 stars, 13 stripes, 13 arrows, 13 leaves on the olive branch, 13 levels on the unfinished pyramid. The founders who designed it were scholars of classical history, ancient languages, and esoteric traditions that had not yet been fully erased. They knew something about 13 that the dominant culture of their era was actively suppressing, and they encoded it anyway into the official symbol of a new nation. Why? Ancient temple complexes across Mesoamerica were built with 13 levels, 13 terraces, 13 steps to specific ceremonial platforms. The El Castillo Pyramid at Chichen Itza casts a shadow during the equinox that creates the illusion of 13 triangles descending the staircase. At the precise astronomical moment when the solar year turns 13, as if the builders had embedded a calendar into the architecture itself, a 13-base calendar that the structure would demonstrate every year, automatically, without maintenance, without explanation. Who were they speaking to? And why did we stop listening? Why? The real question. I began this investigation with a simple observation. A number had been removed from buildings, and I expected a simple answer. What I found was a thread, and every time I pulled it, more came loose. A lunar calendar replaced by a solar one. Sacred astronomical knowledge burned, buried, or simply never preserved. A number that ancient cultures across 6 continents treated as foundational, reframed as cursed. An architectural convention with no legal basis that nonetheless achieved global consistency. Institutional systems, aviation, medicine, hospitality, sport, quietly enforcing the removal of a number with no formal agreement and no public conversation. Not superstition. Not coincidence. Not gradual cultural evolution. A pattern. Precise, persistent, and remarkably coordinated across centuries and continents. So what is the most effective eraser? Not the one that destroys knowledge entirely. The one that makes the question itself feel ridiculous. That makes people embarrassed to ask. That makes scholars reluctant to publish. That makes architects skip from 12 to 14 without a second thought. Because everyone knows, 13 is just unlucky. An old superstition. Nothing to see here. A strange belief. The official explanation asks us to accept that the coordinated, cross-cultural, institutional disappearance of a number is simply the product of accumulated folklore. I think that explanation requires more faith than the alternative. The alternative is this: someone, at some point, understood that the way a culture counts time shapes the way that culture thinks. A people synchronized with lunar cycles, with 13-month rhythms, with the indivisible fundamental period of the natural world, was a people that was difficult to govern. And severing them from the calendar, from the count, from the number itself, that was not a side effect of the standardization project. It was the project. And that is how they declared 13 unlucky.